What's up, everybody? Good morning to you. Happy Tuesday. Coffee cheers. I went to bed so early and I've been trying to get my kids back on the back to school schedule. And so obviously they're like, well, if we got to go to bed early, you got to go to bed early too. And so my kids go to bed better when they know that I'm going to be going to bed too for some reason. It's kind of like a weird equity thing in their brains. So I ended up laying down because I was tired, anyways. I was exhausted. But when I go to bed super early, that means I wake up like super early. And so I ended up catching this X space. And this space was just talking about different things. They were talking about the Elon interview with Trump. And this was one of those pro black spaces. And so I like jumping into different X spaces, so different, thought camps, because it helps me to see how people are thinking about things. And, sometimes it's a little validation of how I think about things too. So a number of things came up in this X space and it's still going on right now. But, there was a lady in there who was talking. She was a non-black lady, and she was talking about how we need to stop talking about race. And she said that, she doesn't believe that, non-black Americans, foundational black Americans, should get reparations. But she said that, she comes from a poor environment, and she never had anything either, right? And I think sometimes people can get so caught up in emotional arguments that they can't look, in the arguments of their different tribe or thought group, that they can't really see a broader picture. And the broader picture, sometimes of the reality of different Americans in this nation has really nothing to do with their race, right? So a lot of times, you may find certain black individuals who will look at a white individual and just automatically believe that they have white privilege, right? And, white privilege comes in so many different ways in America, depending on how you're looking at it. And, sometimes they will automatically believe that they are inherently racist. And even if this person provides a non racist perspective about how they see things based off of their experience, a lot of times they will be accused of being a racist or inner bigot or somebody who's being disingenuous. And I think one of the triggers for most black people when they're engaging in conversations about race relations and the black American experience with white people is when they say, well, we need to just stop talking about it. We're all humans, because there lies the, disingenuous, disingenuousness aspect of that statement. Because, when we go out, and this is for anybody, and we're all being judged on different measurements, right? We're all being judged on how intelligent we are, how articulate we are in this system, how connected we are in this system, how beautiful we are in this system, right? So we all got those factors against us anyways. But the extra layer, the extra factor that black people have is their color, right? And especially black Americans. And, I often wonder, people always talk about how immigrants, they do so much better than black Americans, but I have literally heard immigrants tell me, we feel like slaves. Like we feel like we're just treated like slaves. And that's because they're willing to go through things to make it in this nation that black people are just tired of playing with. You know what I mean? And that's just the bottom line. You know, I think that your average system in America understands how a black person will operate in that system with lower tolerance. That means that, a manager can't punk a black American around, talk to them like they're one of their children. They're not going to do that. Like, it's like for us, it's like if you hired me for a job, I'm going to do that job to the best of my ability, and I need you to provide me resources to help me to do that job and to be successful in that job, and we'll do it. Right? But what I'm not going to do is take you doing little slick things to set me up to fail. Right? I'm going to call you out on those things. Right? The difference between a black person and most people who are beneficiaries to the black American experience is they'll just take it. They'll complain and bitch about it at home, but black people will call it out, right? And that's the intimidation factor, I believe, that many people have with black people is they can't boss us around. They can't punk us like some of these other people that just really want to be successful are willing to be punked. So we sacrifice success a lot because we will not tolerate these people's BS. Other people will tolerate it. And I think, some people look at black people and, it's perplexing to them, right? I think it is perplexing. And maybe it's an unseen element that they don't really recognize is there. You know what I mean? That black people have a very low tolerance for disrespectful people and disrespectful things. And so in these systems that are predominantly run and faced by non-black people, that is an intimidation because they're really trying to set up each of these systems to be a system of slavery in very colorful ways. Mental compliant slavery. Do this. Go to the K-12 system, then you go to these things, to learn. It's all part of a system of a slave mentality, right? And a lot of black people, they're resistant to that, right? A lot of non-black people are resistant to that, but a lot of black people are very resistant to that. So, I think, though, that it's fair to give people credit for who they are and what's true to their character, too. And I think that there are a lot of non-black people who are not bigots, who don't have any undercover racism about them. And to be honest with you, black people have racism in them. I always tell people this all the time. Racism is not racist. It's just not racist. You know what I mean? It's one of those things where everybody in America has a fragment of racism in them. You right? It's just to what degree does each group's racism impacts the others, right? A racist black person really has very little economic impact on a racist white person because black people don't hold a lot of economic influence and power in this nation. But a racist non-black person can definitely impact black people and other people of their kind as well. And because they have more of the power and the influence in the nation, I did not catch the Elon and Trump interview or conversation. I will entertain some of that conversation and do a video review on it later. When I was trying to tune into it, it seemed like there were some technical problems. And I feel like if, things like that prolong for too long, my brain just doesn't, it just gets disinterested. So I will check it out later on today and provide my thoughts. You know how you just like get to know people just vicariously through the projections. And I have found myself, in different arguments defending Elon Musk. But, if I were going to say, if I were gonna put accusation on somebody that may or may not have like bigoted inclinations, I would really be questioning that guy. You know, he seems like the guy that says, "Hey, I was friends with Kanye, so I'm not racist." But Elon comes from South Africa, and if you know anything about sort of the social dynamics of what's happening in South Africa, obviously they did like this whole switch, where, they got rid of apartheid, white apartheid, and basically switched it. And people like Elon, they're not very happy about that, right? Um, they're not very happy about that at all, right? Because I think South Africa is one of the examples, one of those nations, where the tide was turned, and, you know, basically it's almost like a revenge type of situation over there. And as a person of God, I don't believe in equity in any way. I believe that vengeance belongs to our Lord, in his due time. And I can't really, you know buy, narratives of hating people, um, especially for things that, may be beyond their control. And so I hear a lot of people who focus on Black disenfranchisement. And trust me, I feel like I've gotten my Negro wake up call in America. It wasn't until I became a financial advisor that I really feel like I got my Negro wake up call in America, because it's not until you actually go into those white male dominant spaces that you really do understand, the realities of how America really works, and why certain people are more successful in industries than other people. I can say that, I worked in the automotive sector, and I think I've always seen fragments of racism in the characters of some certain people that I worked with. But I would say that it was something that was like one-offs more. But it wasn't until I came into the financial services industry that I realized how racist, people are or can be inherently in America, of all colors. I mean, because there's a lot of is in America, if you will. Um, and racist and racism, to me, I don't think it's just that the narrow lens that a lot of people see it in, because racist is kind of like people who are conscious of race, in a very inorganic way or organic way by indoctrination. Um, but I think, races can also be, colorism to me is an extension of racism. Um, and I think even just gatekeeping, right? Sometimes the gatekeepers to success of Black people can be Black people. So it's just an interesting thing to think about when people are having conversations about race, right? Especially when you're Black. It's actually very useful not to try to go in with a sense of, I don't know, like higher consciousness, right? Because when you discredit somebody else's experience because you're cleaving on to the fact that universally your group has experienced these things much, much worse, I think that there's a level of being disingenuous in that, because realistically, that a lot of that MAGA, and I've said this before, a lot of the MAGA crowd is because of the lower economic, disenfranchised whites who grew up in cycles of poverty and probably bad, poor behaviors as well. Like many blacks who may be in the poverty line. Not all blacks are in poverty, by the way. But, anyways, you guys have a wonderful day. I'm going to try to wake up. I mean, jeez. I hate getting up so early because it's like, I know by like 1 o'clock I'm going to be crashing and I'm going to have to either get some more coffee or do a 5 hour energy, something. But, anyways, you guys have a wonderful day and I will catch you on the next one. Bye.